All right, today in class we also went over document C, and I had students go ahead and read this by themselves first, and they had to highlight or square the title of the article, and they had to square or highlight the source. So this is the title, and here's our source. I'm sorry, I neglected to do that. But then I had them go through and underline any words within the text that they didn't understand or know the meaning of, or like they've never heard it before, to go ahead and to underline it so that they can make that things known to them. And then I went ahead and read the text to them, and then the words that were underlined, I substituted different words for them with the meaning in the document. So I'm going to do the same here so that you guys can get the idea of what we did in class. All right. The land of Israel was the birthplace of the Jewish people. Here, their spiritual, religious, and political identity was shaped. After being forcefully exiled, kicked off their land by ancient Rome, the people kept faith with it throughout their dispersion. Dispersion, split, separation, moving away, and never stopped. That's what ceases. Stopped praying and hope for their return to it, and for the restoration, restoring, rebuilding, putting it back together in it of their political freedom. Jews strove or worked towards, and every consecutive, that's what successive is, consecutive, one after another, generation to reestablish themselves in their ancient homeland. In recent decades, they returned in their masses, in multiples, in big numbers. In the year 1897, at the summons, at the calling of their spiritual father of the Jewish state, Theodor Herzl, the first Zionist Congress came together and stated the right of the Jewish people to national rebirth in its own country. This right was recognized in the Balfour Declaration of the 2nd November 1917. So on November the 2nd, 1917, the Balfour Declaration was drafted, and it recognized the right of Israel as needing an Israel for Jews. The catastrophe, this huge disastrous event, which recently befell the Jewish people, the mass killing of millions of Jews in Europe. So this catastrophe that they're talking about happened to the Jews is the Holocaust. Was another clear demonstration of the urgency, the rapid need, the desperate need of solving the problem of its homelessness by reestablishing in Israel the Jewish state, which would open the gates of the homeland wide to every Jew and place upon the Jewish people the status of fully privileged member of the Committee of Nations. This is where other nations kind of recognize the right and authority of one nation. So they were saying survivors of the Nazi Holocaust in Europe, as well as Jews from other parts of the world, continue to migrate to come to Israel. This right is the natural right of the Jewish people to be masters of their own fate. Take charge of your own destiny, not let people like the Romans or the Europeans or Americans or the UN dictate how you should live your life or what kind of political system that you should have. They should be able to do that for themselves. Like all other nations, like the U.S., France, Great Britain, they're allowed to do these things. And so they're saying Israel should be allowed to do that as well, in their own sovereign state, sovereign, free, independent nation with their own government. That's what sovereign is. We extend our hand to all neighboring states and their peoples in an offer of peace and good neighborliness. Neighborliness is like being a good neighbor, being there for somebody and lending a hand when they're in need. And appeal to them to establish bonds of cooperation and mutual help with the sovereign, again, independent Jewish people settled in its own land. The state of Israel is prepared to do its share in a common effort for the advancement of all the Middle East. All right, the document questions are, according to Mr. Ben-Gurion, why does he think Jews need a homeland in Israel? Well, according to him, the land of Israel was their birthplace, and so Jews should go back there, right? Number 2, what is the relationship between dispersion or a diaspora and Zionism? The Jews were forced off their land, the dispersion, and they always wanted to return to their birthplace, Zionism. So that's our relationship. Who is the author appealing to in the last paragraph? Well, he's talking about our neighboring states, so he's appealing to the Arab country, and I am justifying my answer with document evidence by backing it up and saying we extend our hand to all neighboring states and their peoples. This is how I know that's who he's talking to. He says we're talking to our neighboring states and their people, so their Arab countries. And number 4, how might this document answer the overall DBQ question? Well, there's many different answers that you could have come up with, but this is one example. The people that are involved in establishing Israel are infringing on the Palestinians and taking their land and expecting them to be okay with it. So we know that the Israelis are moving into what was once Palestine, and so this is not really making the Palestinians happy. So this is definitely causing conflict, and nobody really took into consideration or the opinion of the Palestinians, and so that's where I get they're expecting them to be okay with it, and that is document C.